Good morning, everybody. So, we're going to talk about the importance of being a nurturing parent and really providing a safe, nurturing home environment for children starting at a very young age. For those of you who are not familiar, I've been specializing in trauma for about 12 years, but what I've recently learned really impacted my view on a lot of things. There's something in neuroscience called the bottom up development. And what that means is at a very young age, even as a newborn, babies begin creating their brains, right? So as parents are kind, nurturing, affectionate, and provide that safe environment, smiles, holding them, things like that, they begin to develop their primitive brain, right, from their central nervous system. And that primitive brain, is automatically going to do certain things, reach for the breast to feed, breathing, crying when they're hungry, those types of things. As the child gets older and they're continuously being nurtured, then they move up towards the limbic brain, which means that's where your emotions and senses and all of that begin to be developed. And then as those continue to be developed in a safe, nurturing, and healthy environment, then those neuron pathways continue to develop and the person's brain grows at a healthy rate and they begin to develop that upper cortical part of the brain, which is the neocortex, prefrontal cortex, those areas that are involved with higher thinking, abstract thinking, consequences, how things are relevant, those types of things. So in a normal child, that develops correctly, right? Well, in a child who suffers a lot of trauma, or maybe even just a non-nurturing parent who rarely picks them up or shows them that affection, from the jump, their brain starts to be underdeveloped, right? Up until about age 10 in children, brain development is super important. So with those children in trauma, them not getting that nurturing environment, and then, as they begin to age, around 2 or 3, and they begin to start interacting, if they are not having a safe environment or they're exposed to different kinds of trauma, it really impacts their brain's ability to develop, right? So we got that bottom step, which includes, your central nervous system and everything coming in through parts of your body and your senses, and they're coming up through your brainstem and your central nervous system. And then they meet up into the limbic brain, which is basically your emotional brain that helps to impact behaviors, how to react in situations and things like that. So a child with a healthy and nurturing environment, their limbic brain develops functionally. They're able to process information. Emotions are not heightened and things like that. So then again, then they lead to healthy brains. They're able to create them neuron pathways up to the top or upper part of their cortical brain with the prefrontal cortex in those areas. Now, a child that has a lot of trauma, they're stuck in that limbic and emotional brain, right? So those neurons are not heading to, up to their neocortex. Instead, they begin to head to the amygdala, which is basically a fight or flight response. So in this thalamus and then to the amygdala, which is causing this fight or flight response, this child begins to, associate those neuron pathways. Now, a child who's exposed to repetitive trauma over and over again, they begin to develop those neuron pathways, and they become so strong from repeated traveling to those to the amygdala that now those pathways are so prominent and so strong, it's being stored in their brain. And so now those neuron pathways aren't being developed to their upper parts of their brain with abstract and higher thinking. So now we have a child who is repeatedly being abused, and them neurons are going back and forth to the amygdala. And now they have created a circuit that now does not allow those neurons to reach the upper parts of their brain. Now, implicit memories are unconscious memories, and they are stored in this emotional part of the brain, which is unconscious. So with these unconscious thoughts, how can people really change when they don't even realize yet what they're doing or what's happening to them, or even that their behaviors are impacting them in the way that they are? So this is why it is so important that if your child suffered from any trauma or anything like that, that you get to a therapist and you begin to address that bottom step, right? that brain stem and senses and begin to recreate those neuron pathways so that, we can try to, begin to create brain. The brain is so resistant, right? So there's lots of different techniques that can be used for that, whether it's meditation, TMS therapy, all kinds of different therapies that can help to create, these neuron pathways into the brain and help develop that. However, in order for that to happen, those automatic responses that are stored in the limbic brain need to be addressed. Now, I'm speaking of this because, trauma's affected my life a lot, starting at a very young age. And I know that sometimes I get triggered and I act out of character. I know it's not me, but it's really hard to catch it beforehand because I can literally feel all of those emotions being released in my body. And when I'm feeling those emotions, it is really hard to not just react because that's how our brains are set up, right? When we feel those strong emotions, especially fear, or we feel like we're not safe, our body is meant to respond by producing that cortisol, adrenaline, and those are not good for our body or our mind. So that can lead to health issues in the future, as well as, just being on edge and not being able to get ahead of it. Because the way our brains and our mind were created was to, when we're experiencing these scary events or we're fearful for our safety, we're meant to be able to act like an animal and respond automatically, right? So that reptilian brain. However, this is what's, when those neurons are sent to the amygdala and these physiological changes are occurring, those stress hormones are horrible for you. And obviously, we are not using our prefrontal cortex or upper parts of our brain because we are stuck in our limbic system and our emotional brain, which is sending that right back to our central nervous system to then behave and react. So the longer trauma and these things occur, the worse that gets. So why I wanted to talk about this is because I've struggled my whole life, Lord knows, those who know me know that, but I've spent 15 years journaling, delving deep inside, and I wanted to overcome my challenges and my barriers and understand why, I was behaving and thinking in some of the maladaptive ways that I was. So definitely, I'm learning the knowledge and insight needed to move forward for my own life healthy. But I also want to share that information with others so that hopefully, it can encourage you to, talk to the right people, do the right research, learn the right things, and try to figure out yourself, right? The best form of power, in my opinion, will never be the control of others, but it will be to be able to control myself, and I think in most environments, I'm really great at that, and I do consider myself a leader. However, there are those times where I've acted very out of character because, my emotions and physiological changes in my body cause me to react in certain ways. Understanding this bottom-up approach and how from the ages of, a newborn to age 7, it is so critical that we provide those nurturing environments and provide a safe place for children to be healthy and happy. So with that being said, always here if anybody has questions or wants to talk or anything like that. I'm always out there. I love to help people. I'm hoping to use my experiences to, inspire others to dig deep. When we dig within and we heal ourselves, that's when we're going to give the world our best versions. And when the world has our best versions, we can bring that out in others and really inspire great change around the world and within ourselves, within others, our families, our communities, our organizations, and then the world as a whole. And as we all transform one by one, we can truly create that heaven on earth. So with that being said, I wish everybody, tons of insight, enlightenment, and lots of love and support from your loved ones. And let's work together to create a better future. God bless.